Welcome, my friends, to Conspiracy or Conspiracy. I'm Wes, the host of Conspiracy or Conspiracy, and this is a show where we talk about the Illuminati, NWO, things that go bump in the night, any type of conspiracy you can imagine. We talk about it here. Even one, some that are a little bit outside of the box. Healer, welcome, my friend. Good to see you. On tonight's show, we're going to be talking a little bit about the recent Brett Weinstein and Tucker Carlson interview. And a lot of us in the conspiracy space already know much of this information, but it's always nice when you get somebody that's been recently red-pilled, and especially somebody of the standing of a Brett Weinstein. And he had some really interesting things to say in that interview that we'll be getting to shortly, but do want to hold off on that till we get a little bit further in the show, just to make sure that everybody can find the stream easily enough. This is pretty impromptu. Just got done on Drew's channel. We're talking about some paranormal stuff there, abilities that people have. I do think, just based on my own experience over... since I really went on, the healing journey, if you will. And so the healing journey, for those of you that are tuning in or catching the replay and haven't really been on something like that, basically what you're doing is you're doing a deep dive on yourself and really examining kind of your past, why you behave certain ways, and, ultimately what makes you unhappy and what makes you happy, what your triggers are, and what turns your mood around and keeps you living a healthy, happy, and positive life, and doing what you want out of life, enjoying the journey of life. And for a lot of people, they can't do that kind of introspection and self-reflection, and if you're not ready to, you shouldn't do it. But, since I've had that experience, I do feel that getting into that kind of an alignment did facilitate some sort of connection with the creator, and also with some of those abilities that we were talking about on Drew's channel, Supreme Heretic. And again, a toe of the elephant, if we're talking about NWO and the COVID pandemic, and where we're going into this one world government, and with digital money, and everything's tracked and traced, and that kind of stuff. It's really to keep you away from really being happy. They don't want you to be happy. They want you to be wrapped up in materialism, and they want you to be wrapped up in, always needing more, always needing to keep up with the Joneses, and just not focus on the spiritual aspects of life, or the things that are not material. And so I think when I went to embark on that journey, that was one of the key takeaways for me, anyway. Hail, Parrothead! Welcome, my friend. I am the Lord of the land and the waterfowl. Yes, sir. Well, somebody's trying to steal my flock. I tell you, Whitey must be pretty popular in that pond. Because it looks like Whitey's had a lot of offspring. And I am glad that somebody was able to get that fishing line from around his web. That really looked painful, but he wouldn't let me get close enough to him. Yep, lots of white ducks out there. Yeah. God, I finally got the truck smogged, and so I get the truck back. It passed smog, thank God. I paid more than I should have paid to get that thing smogged. It's ridiculous. But I've learned the trick. You go to a test and repair place. That's the trick. Anyway, so I passed smog. And as soon as I get it back, the clutch is starting to slip really bad now. So wonderful. More money that I don't have to spend, and I'm using it for work. So I have to try and at least get that clutch to hang in there until I can get it replaced. Hail, Keck44. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you. Yep, yeah, Whitey is, well, I don't know how ducks get it on, but however they are, he is, for sure. Yep, we are insomniacs, for sure. So let's get into this Brett Weinstein interview, because that was really pretty interesting. Now, how long has Tucker had a YouTube channel? Because I'm finding more and more of his content on YouTube and less of it on X or Twitter or whatever. Whatever. Ugh. So tell me something. Lex Friedman. Do you guys think that Lex Friedman is being seduced by the dark side? I have to wonder about that guy. So this is the interview that he did on Tucker, and we'll watch it in clips. But I mean, I think this definitely merits some discussion. It's very dense, the conversation that they have, so it's very efficiently told what he's talking about.
For a few moments on the overview here. So you have all these remarkable things converging in a single 12-month period. You have war, pestilence, political unrest, apparently unsolvable political unrest. What do you think we're looking at in the West? Like, what is this moment, and how does it end?
Well, so I have long been interested in questions of good governance and the West, and I'm sad to report that I think the West has actually collapsed, and what we are left with is now a nebulous echo. The values of the West still function, but they function in a vague way, and we have seen that they can evaporate quickly under the right circumstances.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about when I say it's a very dense interview. That was very efficient. He's very efficient with his words. And so what he's saying there is that, how we're debating about whether or not the comet's going to hit Hollywood and Hollywood's going to be dead. And I think I made the case that the meteorite or the comet had already struck, and that what we're watching now is Hollywood after the comet struck, and that they're already dead and they know they're dead. And so what he seems to be saying, if I was interpreting that correctly, is that the meteor's already struck Western civilization, and that we're just keeping up appearances at this point. And it's an interesting thought. I mean, if you look at the level of debt that we have, totally unsustainable. If you look at the direction things are going with tyranny versus freedom, that's already kind of, it's interesting. So let's continue here.
I suspect, and I really don't know, I don't think anybody knows, but I suspect that some powerful set of forces has decided that quickly under the right circumstances. I suspect.
Sorry, I just, you guys didn't hear any of that, I don't think. Yeah, here we go. Boomer.
I suspect, and I really don't know, I don't think anybody knows, but I suspect that some powerful set of forces has decided that consent of the governed is too dangerous to tolerate, and that it has begun to unhook it. And we do not know how this works. We can see some of the partners who are involved in this, but I don't think we know
Hey, Phil.
ultimately who's driving it or where they're going. I think many of the notions that we picked up about nations and who our friends are and who our enemies are they are now more misleading than they are informative. In other words, I don't think
This part.
the U.S. has an enemy called China. I think there are elements within the U.S. that are partnered within with elements within the Chinese Communist Party for practical reasons, and so
Okay. So what he seems to be saying here, he's not going into the Alex Jones route where, it's demons or interdimensional aliens, or, he's not going there with it. But he's clearly implying there's a force behind it, and that self-governance, the powers that be are like, fuck it, no self-governance is too dangerous. You had Brexit, you had Trump, and you guys are foiling our plans. We can't have that anymore. And elements of the U.S. and China, well, you can see it in the, none of this stuff makes sense from a national sovereignty point of view, given China a lot of our technology. Build back better being the slogan for every Western country. Canada uses build back better. The UK used build back better. Bribin used build back better. So yeah, he's alluding to the symptoms that you see here. And, self-governance cannot be trusted, but who is behind them? And that is really the question, isn't it? Who's behind them that they don't want people to have self-governance or trust them to have self-governance? Clearly, secret societies have a lot to do with it. And the secret societies that we know about, the CIA, MI6, the Mossad, and business interests like your BlackRocks. So he's saying, yeah, we see the agents, we see the people that work for them. Who do they work for? And that's a lot of the problem with this compartmentalization, where people don't know that they're necessarily working for evil or doing the bidding of evil, or they may not even have the full picture or a different picture of what's actually going on. And it's again, it's quite obvious looking at it, build back better, and the same agenda popping up in different places, that there is somebody behind it, and there's a concerted effort to destroy Western civilization. Let's continue here.
The notion that these two parties are competing with each other just distracts us from what's actually taking place. But let's just put it this way. We have a large global population. Most people have no useful role through no fault of their own. They have not been given an opportunity in life to find a useful way to contribute. And I wonder if the rent-seeking elites that have hoarded so much power are not unhooking our rights because effectively they're afraid of some global French Revolution moment as people realize that they've been betrayed and left without good options.
Okay, so he posits his theory there, where, is that the reason for it, that technology has come so far along that most people, as he says there, do not have a quote useful and productive role in society through no fault of their own, and that now you're going to get to a point where the people have figured out that they're getting screwed, and that you're going to have a global Bastille Day, and that's what they're trying to avoid, is something like that. Hail, just another red shirt. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you. And it kind of ties into this stuff because look, AI and all of the tools and skills that we have, LED lights, so we become much more efficient in the energy we consume. And AI, if everything's open sourced, you're not going to need the elites. All that the technology we have, for example, mobile food delivery or Uber, right? You have somebody that can work anytime they really want to if they meet certain criteria with Uber or with mobile food delivery. And then you have customers that it's not cheap, but it's not expensive. That is available for the customer to be able to have anything delivered, as opposed to, like, say, the 90s, where some Chinese food places might deliver and pizza delivered, and that was really your only options for delivery. And so they fear these empowering technologies with the ability to number one, with the sort of logistics that can be handled. You don't need middle managers, and you don't really need executives as much at that point. You really just need a good marketing department and IT people. So you don't need a top-down apparatus, is what I'm saying, with the technology that we have. And, the way that empowers people, allowing them to time shift with their schedules if they're doing it as an occupation, or for ride share, or to have food delivered, any of that stuff that's empowering. And so my case would be that they're more afraid of the empowerment, but that empowerment will lead people to see how they're getting screwed and make it easier for them to protest if they can do those things, time shift and take time off when they need to. And then if you don't have a regimented schedule, or have to have a regimented schedule, you're probably more likely going to tell somebody to fuck off. R says you don't need the middlemen, the Epstein types. Nope. Also, we taught them to be obedient workers whose only pleasure comes from material things. Absolutely. Let's get into more of this and hear what he has to say. Again, this is a very dense conversation. Dense as in densely layered, as in he's very efficient with his words and what he wants to say and how he's saying it and how it ties into the bigger picture. It's one of the things I love about Brett Weinstein, is that he does really have that gift that a lot of people don't have, to summarize complicated information in an easy to understand way. Let's keep going here.
Is that what we're seeing? Certainly feels like we're facing an end game where important properties that would once have been preserved by all parties because they might need them one day are now being dispensed with, and we're being, we're watching our governmental structures and every one of our institutions captured, hollowed out, turned into a paradoxical inversion of what it was designed to do. That's not an accident.
Nope.
Whether they, the thing that worries me most actually is that whatever is driving this is not composed of diabolical geniuses who at least have some plan for the future, but it's being driven by people who actually do not know what kind of hell they are inviting.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if I necessarily agree with that or not. I think the people in office aren't very diabolical and smart. I think here's the problem. The compartmentalization is the problem. The people at the top, the people that with the money, the 13 families, if you will, they know what's going on. And I don't think the underlings know what's going on. But for sure, he has more to say about it here. But here's his take on our odds.
They're going to create a kind of chaos from which humanity may well not emerge. And I get the sense that unless they have some remarkable plan that is not obvious, that they are just simply drunk with power and putting everyone, including themselves, in tremendous jeopardy by taking apart the structures on which we depend.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's a few possibilities here. One world government has been the goal for a very long time for these folks. That's very clear. And but the way things are accelerating right now, it just, what is behind it? Because taking away the rule of law, I mean, that's going to be something that theoretically would be damaging them too, taking away free speech. The inventiveness with which that free people have, being able to freely associate and to create and to collaborate, that goes away. I mean, China, they're okay at knocking things off, but invention, the way the culture is there, inventing things, you're not looked at fondly in China if you get above your station. So that model for the world seems a little weird. Let me get to the chat. R says they're delusional, so no matter what the source of the delusion, they're committed to their delusional agenda. Yeah, that is true. They are diabolical, but not smart, says just another red shirt. It appears that way. I mean, anybody that's playing dress up and that has to threaten people and not have their ideas questioned. If you don't want your ideas questioned, then you're probably not that smart. Because if you were diabolical and smart, you would be able to find a way to defend your ideas. Yeah, the money families. I mean, I don't want a Bastille Day. I want to put these people behind bars, and the underlings are going to have to offer some type of forgiveness for them to flip on them. We'll see how that shakes out.
How do you see, my last question, how do you see you're speaking in grand terms that 3 years ago I might have laughed at. I'm not laughing at all, and I think you're absolutely right. But you're also choosing, as a 50-ish year old man, to say this stuff out loud and to pursue the truth as you find it, and then to talk about it. So why did you decide to do that, and how do you think that ends?
Well, we are all the products of whatever developmental environment produced us. And as I've said on multiple topics where my family has found itself in very uncomfortable and sometimes dangerous circumstances because we speak out, I don't think I had a choice. I literally cannot understand how I would sleep at night, how I would look at myself in the mirror if I didn't say what needed to be said. And, I heard a very good speech by Bobby Kennedy Jr. Though neither of us are libertarians.
So, I mean, I think a lot of us have come to this decision point where, you have to speak out, and you feel like you have to speak out, and there's negative consequences. And, good on him. I'm very grateful. When he first started to speak out, I was very happy that he was doing that, because we need people that are on the, the so-called left to do that. I mean, I think at this point, most of us know that left versus right is a bunch of bullshit. And for the most part, if you get a libertarian, if Dennis Kucinich and Ron Paul were running the government, I think you'd probably have, what would happen would be you'd have a smaller government that probably would on some level take care of the poor. That's what you'd have. So if you get people that are really on the left and really on the right, you actually get that aren't ringers like your Mitch McConnells. You'd actually have good policy. And so what's nice about him is that much like Russell Brand, people that are on the left, because those were the ones that seemed to be really difficult to reach for a while. People on the left were just not very receptive to Alex Jones for whatever reason, or to, Steven Crowder. And so having somebody like a Brett Weinstein or a Russell Brand on the left, it's very helpful, and that's red-pilled a lot of people. And, we've all reached the point where, I mean, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And, I spoke out for a long time on social media. I was sharing Alex Jones's stuff out like crazy. And, Corbett Report, those guys, I was going on and I was engaging in dialogue with people. And I was like a Johnny Appleseed, a red pill for a while until my original Facebook account got nuked. And I believe, I became a victim of what we now know as Operation Signature Reduction, where you have paid trolls that are on the CIA payroll through shell corporations. That was I believe much of that was an organized effort of those people that they would find out if you were effective or not, and you would be targeted with a hate mob and doxing and harassing phone calls, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to think about when you decide to speak out, but you have to because people, okay, if you're willfully ignorant, maybe there's not a whole lot we can do for you. But if you claim to have an open mind, then it's nice to be able to, test to see if you have an open mind. And engaging those people in dialogue, I think, is a good thing. And I think speaking out on a YouTube channel where someone will come across this and maybe the way I'm saying it isn't going to resonate, but the way a Brett Weinstein says it will resonate, that's a good thing. So I'm actually, I mean, how can you not? Your conscience would tell you that you have to. And I agree with him. RR says, you got countries that are following AI algorithmic models to run society. That could explain the inhuman nature of warfare. Yeah, they probably had it for a long time. And Phil says, I believe this is the year the New World Order at least partially reveals itself. The current economic system will collapse by the end of the year. They're going to get desperate. And I mean, they're already desperate. Look at how they're trying to stop Trump, and Trump wasn't even. Here's the funny thing about Trump. If they had just been patient with Trump, I mean, he wasn't even really upending the entire New World Order. He was like throwing them bones and stuff here and there with your John Boltons and your Bill Barr appointments. You wouldn't have this. Yeah, you wouldn't. Nope. Let's continue here, shall we?
He was at the Liberty Conference in Memphis, and the last thing he said in that speech struck me to my core. It's something I've thought often and said almost never. But there are fates far worse than death, and I think, for my part, I have lived an incredible life. there's plenty I still want to do, and I am not eager to leave this planet any earlier than I have to. I have a marvelous family. I live in a wonderful place, and I've got lots of things. Bucket list, but I got lots of things on my bucket list. However, humanity is depending on everybody who has a position from which to see what is taking place, to grapple with what it might mean, to describe it so that the public understands where their interests are. It is depending on us to do what needs to be done if we're to have a chance of delivering a planet to our children and our grandchildren that is worthy of them, if we're going to deliver a system that allows them to live meaningful, healthy lives, we have to speak up. And I don't know how to get people to do that. I'm very hesitant to urge others to put themselves or their families in danger. And I know that everybody's circumstances are different. Some people are struggling just simply to feed a family and keep a roof over their heads. Those people obviously have a great deal less liberty with respect to standing up and saying what needs to be said. But this is really, it's what we call in game theory a collective action problem. If everybody responds to their personal well-being, if everybody says that's too dangerous to stand up, I'm not suicidal, I can't do it.
So yeah, that's part of it too. Of speaking out is to serve as that example and to show people that what it's like to go through that and look, hey, when I got red pilled, I mean, I definitely believed in the Constitution. I was a libertarian back then, and I definitely thought that we should that we were not operating within the Constitution. But once I did a deep dive on the JFK assassination and 9/11 and the Federal Reserve, I mean, it was all over. You can't unsee that stuff once you've seen it. And, I remember talking to that guy. I was in one of my car forums. He used to have those forum websites, you'd have bulletin boards, and then they'd have like magazine articles and things of that nature. He was like, okay, prove me wrong. And so not only when I went to go prove that guy wrong, was he right, but it was even worse than everything he had told me about. And you see that with people, because you never know who you're going to reach. And there are some people that do have a certain curiosity, and they do check out the quote opposition, if you will. And I will occasionally come across like a Sam Harris or something like that, and one of those lefties, or cruise by the Young Turks. And the Young Turks, before they got invested by, I forget the name of the billionaire, but before that happened, I thought Cenk was kind of like the Alex Jones of the left. But once they sold out, it was obvious that they had sold out. And it's another problem with I guess speaking out, is that kind of stuff happens. They do try to co-opt people and are successful in some ways. But I think it's important just for your fellow man. I mean, you don't want your fellow man to suffer. And you don't want them to be, you don't want anybody that might be a friend or a family member to be fooled like this. I mean, we're so heavily propagandized in what should be a free country. And part of that freedom is the freedom to lie and be fooled. But what we're talking about here is institutional lying and institutional fuckery and trickery. Let's continue here.
Then not enough people stand up to change the course of history. Whereas if people somehow put aside the obvious danger to their ability to earn and maybe to their
Hail to
lives
Kiev
of
Doom.
saying what needs to be said, then we greatly outnumber those we are pitted against. They are ferociously powerful, but I would also point out this interesting error. So I call the force that we're up against Goliath, just so I kind of remember what the battle is. Goliath made a terrible mistake, and it made it most egregiously during COVID, which is it took all of the competent people, took all of the courageous people, and it shoved them out of the institutions where they were hanging on. And it created, in so doing, the dream team. Created every player you could possibly want on your team to fight some historic battle against a terrible evil. All of those people are now at least somewhat awake. They've now been picked on by the same enemy. And yeah, all right, we're outgunned. It has a tremendous amount of power, but we've got all of the people who know how to think. So I hate to say it, or maybe I like to say it, but I don't think it's a slam dunk, but I like our odds.
I would have to agree with him there. Smart, when you wrong a smart person that knows they're right, and then they see that's happened to other people, you're dealing usually with some very determined folks. Those types of people usually would be like a high C personality, which is a very stubborn personality type, but on the disc profile. But so first of all, they've gotten rid, because of what they've done, they've gotten rid of the smart people, is what he's saying. I believe he's saying. And the smart people have gotten together because they've all been attacked by the same person. And what that's left them with, and I think I've said this on the show too a couple of times, like Joe Biden was the best they could do, right? Kamala Harris was the best they could do. And that leaves you with like the B team. That leaves you with like the mighty heroes. That's what that leaves you with. It leaves you with not the best. So they've gotten rid of and antagonized the people that are not the best. And that leaves them the B team that they have, and that's what we're fighting. So I'd have to concur with his assessment there that I think if things continue the way they are, we probably do have a pretty good shot at it. Now, war gaming it out. I mean, in the full interview, he talked about the UN treaty on pandemics, and that trying to be implemented, which is very draconian. I think they're going to be cracking down on what they describe as not just misinformation and disinformation, but malinformation, which is the $50 word for speech we don't like, speech that is harmful to us. And so, if there's another crazy left turn into hardcore tyranny, and those of us that were speaking out during the scamdemic, if we get like the J6 treatment, the J6er treatment, I don't know. At that point, you're pissing off, moms and dads and people that are going to be locked up are going to have families and people that love and care about them. And at some point, when your child's getting locked up, or your spouse or brother or sister or somebody that you care about, even if you do have a bad case of TDS at some point, I mean, is it going to be bad enough where it's going to be like the old Soviet Union? And it's just like, to hell with you. You deserve to get locked up because of your opinions. I don't think so. I mean, I think some people will be like that. I do. But I think that would have the effect of really waking up and pissing people off that have their relatives getting locked up like that. Because number one, it's going to prove that what they've been saying the whole time has been right. I've actually thought about where this whole thing is going, and if we get to a point where they start locking people up, because they've already set the stage with their rhetoric. Biden's red speech that he gave. They've set the stage. If there's a major terror attack and a city gets nuked, or we end up getting into a war that the homeland, the mainland, gets attacked, they're going to blame it on us. They're going to say, you people, by bashing our country and putting it down, are made us vulnerable to this attack. And they're going to declare an emergency, and they're probably going to lock people like me up. And it's just, how much of an infrastructure do they have to do that right now? How will the police respond to something like that? How will the people there, the National Guard, respond to rounding people like that up? So it's all stuff to think about. And then thinking about if you actually do get locked up, I mean, what are they going to do to you? How are you going to be treated? Or, I mean, is it going to be like where you're going to be waterboarded, or, thrown into solitary confinement? You're going to have to be very mentally tough if something like that happens. I mean, already in prison, the way they put people in prison, it's very dehumanizing. You have to like communally shower together and communally eat together, and they give you a prisoner number, and that's how that is. And they're not, the people working there aren't going to care if you're a political prisoner or not. I mean, I think that's clear from what happened to the J6ers and the conditions that they're in. They already did throw Owen Schroyer in jail for January 6th, and he wasn't even participating in it. And they already, Brandon Strzok was thrown in jail, and he wasn't even really I don't even think he breached the Capitol, did he? Wasn't he just on the outside filming as well? Or if he was there, I think he just filmed some footage and that was it. I'll have to look again and see what happened with his case. But the point is, it seems like they don't really have much of a choice here of either going further into tyranny or giving up without a fight. Funny thing is, they wouldn't even have to actually give up without a fight. They could just pretend they gave up without a fight and then figure their shit out behind the scenes and try it again. That's really what if they had smart people working for them, that is what they would do. That's what they would advise them to do. But they don't. Just like Brett Weinstein said, they don't have the smart people working for them anymore. So that brings us back to, do you think they're going to release another pandemic? Because he seemed to think in that Tucker Carlson interview that they're going to try it again, and that they thought that COVID-19 was just a trial run. And H1N1 was probably a trial run for COVID. Remember H1N1 swine flu? There's kind of like a similarly weird thing going on with hand sanitizer that there was with masks, right? Remember that? The hand sanitizer? Everybody had to have hand sanitizer. And I was like, no, just even back then, I was like, no, just use soap and water. And then, with COVID, it was the masks and then the vaxes. Tiki of Doom says, I hate to say it, but I think they can totally get away with it again. Well, I mean, can they? The only way they can get away with it again is if they start jailing the people that are speaking out against it and so demonizing them that that nobody wants to have anything to do with them. I mean, if they release something that's different, where it's where there really are people dropping dead, yeah, I think I think so. But when are they going to try it again? Are they going to try it again this year or next year or 2030? I mean, when? Just another red shirt says that's the left's MO, but I don't think they're capable. Well, I don't really view left and right the way I used to, that's for sure. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this whole thing shakes out. God, I would suck at being behind bars. I would not be good at that at all. I don't think. Just to really be particular where I would drop a deuce at. Really, it wasn't until very recently that I wasn't able to drop a deuce anywhere other than at home. I can't even imagine being in a place where there's like a communal toilet. Yeah. Yeah, Prison Blues. Would be Prison Blues. Yeah, it might make a funny sitcom. Yeah, Power Squat. Yeah, supposedly sitting down to defecate is a very American phenomenon. Apparently, in most parts of the world, you have a very, very small hole that you're supposed to aim for, and the power squat method is the preferred method. And I think doctors were even saying that the power squat is better because that's the way we're actually supposed to crap, because there's less of a bend in your colon than when you're squatting versus when you're sitting. The more you know. Big Mike agrees. So yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, it's good that people are waking up. I hope that enough people are waking up, and I hope the right people are waking up. But a global Bastille Day, I think he really keyed in on that. I think they're afraid of the global Okay, there's a few possibilities here. Number one, we actually are running out of oil, and because the dollar is pegged to oil, and because we're running out of it, that they are afraid that they're going to lose their control, and so that's why they want to take over the world. But if you look back to the formation of the Fed, they were talking about one world government then. We shall have one world government, either by consent or conquest, I believe was the Paul Warburg quote. Number two, a variation on that theme would be that technology has made them irrelevant. And so they don't want Bastille Day because we'll become so autonomous that we'll be further empowered by technology and further not need them even more than we don't need them now. And then the third possibility is that they know something we don't. And something's going to happen. And at the other end of whatever happens, they want to be the rulers of the world. So who knows what that might be? But we've heard, I mean, it could be anything. If you look at the history of the earth, ancient Egypt and the dinosaurs, I mean, it's not like we've not had floods and desertification and things happened to the planet before. And everything that precipitated climate change was always like a volcano or a meteor impact, something of that nature. I think sunspot activity is another big one. So perhaps they know something we don't know in that area. But in any case, if any of that stuff were true, freedom would be the solution to it. Because wanting to live and having more minds on it and the way the internet works and with AI probably could come up with a solution for any of those problems. Phil says power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Tiki of Doom asks, have you ever looked into Operation Popeye? I have not. Let me Google it here to see what it is. Operation Popeye. Oh, okay. So that's like, okay. Weather control looks like that is. Interesting. So let's put this up for the chat to see. Operation Popeye. Project Controlled Weather Popeye Motor Pool Intermediary Compatriot was a military cloud seeding project carried out by the U.S. Air Force during the Vietnam War. Highly classified program attempted to extend monsoon season over specific areas of the Ho Chi Minh Trail in order to disrupt the North Vietnamese military supplies by softening road surfaces and causing landslides. McNamara was aware there might be objections raised by the international scientific community, but said in a memo to the president that such objections had not in the past been a basis for prevention of military activities considered to be in the best interests of U.S. national security. Chemical weather modification program was conducted from Thailand over Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and allegedly sponsored by Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and the CIA without the authorization of Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird, who categorically denied to Congress that the program for modification of the weather for use as a tactical weapon even existed. Interesting. So that is very interesting. Yeah, I'm going to have to read up more on that because I was not aware of that. According to that, we, the public, don't know what the results of it were. Yep. Well, yeah, I mean, we don't know what the results were. I suppose we could look up separately and see if monsoon season changed. I'll have to look that up. It just blows my mind how much experimental weaponry we used on Vietnam and we still lost. That ought to tell you something. Anyhow, this has been this episode of Conspiracy or Conspiracy. It's getting late, and I think I'll head to bed here. You can already probably tell I'm a little bit tired, a little past my bedtime, but I was in the mood after streaming with Drew to do another Conspiracy or Conspiracy. Thanks for hanging, and we will see ya.